So we have, how to pronounce your last name, Gene?
Parunak.
Parunak, okay. And I just met him last week, although we had met previously at one of these Mish Bio functions. But he has, every Friday, you have this impromptu Zoom meeting with all these various PPE medical supply folks. And I listened in for, well, it was a little, about 90 minutes, I guess. And everybody talks about what their needs are, and they talk about what they can provide. And when did this all start? When did you start doing this?
Yeah, Mike. Well, when, like so many companies at Into Being, we thought, well, you know, we work in products and we work in medical devices. We should be able to help somehow. And so we really made an effort to try to, first of all, we were going to work on masks. And some of our team did a phenomenal job, and we delivered a few hundred masks within a very short amount of time to a local hospital. And that was great. But we started to realize that we were running into material supply issues. And we started to hear anecdotes from other people saying, well, I could do this, but either I don't understand what FDA is actually saying, or I don't understand where to get the materials I need or the testing that I need. And we thought to ourselves, well, this is what we do on a daily basis anyways, is direct traffic for medical device development, which is the same thing, but at maybe a larger scale. And we thought, well, we could serve as an aggregator. And that's kind of where the brainchild came for that.
All right. And so you've been doing it for how many weeks now?
It's been about 3 weeks. We've had 4 shows. The 5th show will be this Friday at 2 p.m.
Now, is this something that anybody can sort of come into on, or by invite only, or how do you run it?
Anybody can come in. We are so thankful to the many groups who came together to make it happen the first time. We had folks from Mish Bio and the University of Michigan, MEDC, Keystone Product Development on the west side of the state. We had folks from Spectrum Health, independent docs over here on the east side. We just had everybody coming together to get the message out, to convene the community. And so it's open to anybody. We give an open forum during the meeting for folks to make themselves known. So if they're part of a manufacturer or a material supplier or a test house, or they're docs that want to report in on what's happening, health systems that have needs, as well as conveners, folks that are making lists and getting people put together. We give them all time to talk about those things, in addition to talking about the latest news on the response front, as well as really the core of it is unpacking the FDA's emergency use authorizations, so that teams have an understanding of how they can really take practical steps to deliver something. Because some of the most frequent questions are, we're working on masks, or we're working on ventilators or something, and we don't really understand what we're being told that we can and can't do. So we like to get hands-on with that with folks.
Yeah, those emergency regs are letting people get away with a lot of stuff that in normal times they would not be able to do, right?
It's true, although I think the most common misperception is that somehow the FDA has just taken the reins off, when in reality what they've done is they've let go of some very specific things, but they've retained in place a lot of other very specific things. As always, FDA is concerned with what you say your product is or what it does. None of that has changed. And in fact, many of the labeling regulations are still very much in place, and they've gotten a little bit more specific about them. So while there are certain design control activities and other good manufacturing practices that they, in many cases, are waiving, it really starts with the labeling requirements. What are you saying this is good for? So we've had a lot of teams that say, oh, I've got the greatest thing, and it's this antibacterial thing that's going to help with COVID. But in fact, FDA is saying, let's not make claims about that. Let's just be very, very basic and say, this is what we're giving. This is what it does. This is what we're not claiming that it does. So getting down to brass tacks on that can be really helpful for teams.
So is the essence of your effort more, it's more medical device related, right, than pharma related? or is it both?
It's definitely, yeah, it's a great question. It's definitely medical device related, although we're trying to touch on the diagnostic EUAs that are coming out there. There's at last count, I think about 40 diagnostic emergency use authorizations. A couple of us from our team really have a background in automated molecular diagnostics. And so it's natural for us to go into that, but that's a big area that's happening really fast. So diagnostic folks are definitely welcome to engage and contribute, and we'll try to make those connections. One of the connections that the diagnostic folks often need and want is to be connected to folks who either have the bug that they can do testing on, or to other test houses that they can work with. So we've seen a lot of testing asks that are really critical to the effort.
Yeah, right now it seems like what everyone's looking for are the testing kits and the antibody kits. And I was reading just today that there's 70 different companies or people or whatever organizations saying that they have these antibody kits that people can use to find out whether or not they've already had COVID. And if it turns out that they have, then in theory, I don't know whether it's going to actually happen, but in theory, they could go back out and go back to work and participate because they would essentially be immune. But I didn't hear a lot of that in the meeting on Monday. It was more the more fundamental stuff like masks. And there was the woman that called in from the Carolinas had the tube that could connect to a ventilator and would be used on 2 patients, but that was just only for the emergency. And then she had to reclaim all of those and destroy them after whenever the pandemic lets up, right? So it was a really big thing. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mike. I mean, a lot of this stuff is very much, the EUAs generally say that they are for the duration of the public health emergency. So for folks who really want to help, this is a great opportunity for looking at it as, oh, we're going to put product out there. Some of the EUAs are saying you're going to have to pull that product back at the end of the public health emergency, whenever that comes. And on the diagnostic side, one of the things that we've seen, and this keeps coming up now in the news this week, and we'll talk about that this Friday, is a lot of these diagnostics we will see what the validation status of them is. How many false positives, how many false negatives? That's something that's not always clear on the surface. So I think that's going to be one of the next things you're going to be hearing about, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that Friday, is what is the validation status, because every diagnostic has a false positive and false negative rate associated with it. And you hope that those are low, but in this case, with everything happening, it may not be clear yet.
So what was the genesis of this Friday group? How did you get this community together?
Well, that was not something that we did. That was really something that the community did. And we're so thankful to all our friends around the state for doing that. Some of the early folks who really sent the message out, and I hope I don't forget anybody in saying this, but it was late on a Thursday night, I think, that we were getting the first one together. And then we had like 230 people show up. It was the next day or the day after. It was just incredible. But I know that Stephen Rapundelow and Alicia from MITechBio sent out a big email blast that made a big dent. I know that the folks over at U of M, especially Tech Transfer, Kelly Sexton, was instrumental. She was the first open forum participant telling us about some of their efforts in aggregating people together. I know the folks over at FFMI sent stuff out. People over at Spectrum Health really got in on that first blast. The folks at Ann Arbor Spark and at the MedHealth cluster coming out of Techtown were instrumental in getting some of that initial word out. Jim Metzger over at Keystone Product Development went out to his list. Our friends over at Public Sector Consultants sent it around to others. I hope doing that from memory, it's probably somebody I missed there. But we had been talking a lot with Kalyan Handik and Priyadarshini Gogoi, who are with Celsi, although we just heard this week all in the news that Celsi just got bought by Bio-Rad, so congratulations. They were instrumental in bringing some of the first awareness that there were going to be some of these shortages to us. And so we had been talking with them a lot early, and so they were instrumental in getting that out. But just so many people responded. So Into Being doesn't have that kind of convening ability, but the community just came together and said, yep, we need to have this discussion. and we're just privileged to be in a position to facilitate it.
Why don't you talk a little bit about Into Being, give you that chance to plug your own company here as well. How'd you guys start? What specifically? I know it's a medical device area, but I'm not totally clear on what it is.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, so Into Being is now just a little bit over 10 years old. Myself and my colleague Aaron Kerr are with a bunch of local startups. Most notably, we were both with HandyLab, and then he was with Accuracy Cytometers. And we've got a team that consists of product development experts. And what we do is we work with new product development efforts on the actual design controls, the hands-on design, readiness for design for manufacturability, as well as on the regulatory submissions, including pre-submissions and 510K submissions. So our bread and butter is doing medical device development for new product development efforts, with everything from startups, independent inventors, to now mid to large sized companies that are working on their new product lines. And so it put us in a great position to say, you know, what we do every day is we work with regulations and actually implementing them down at the level of hands-on stuff. Why don't we start talking about emergency use authorizations? So I think that was a nice link between what we do on a daily basis and the current need.
Okay.
All right, so what do you think of the highlights so far of this effort?
Well, I think the biggest highlight is just to see the whole community coming together. It's been really neat to see how MEDC has been bringing everyone together and maintaining a master database, and so many little efforts have been feeding into that. So I give them a lot of credit for doing that, and that's been really cool to see. People have been coming together, and largely, I would say 95%, there's no self-interest. A lot of times it's just, I'm going to spend the time on the phone and I'm just going to do it. And that, I think, has been overwhelming to see so many people just coming out of the woodwork. There'll always be one or two who are like, they want to make a buck off of it, but that is just by and large not what I'm seeing on a daily basis on the phone late at night with folks. It's just not what I'm seeing. So that's been exciting. And I think, you know, in terms of the show on Fridays, it's been fun. We had Sundaresh Brahmasandra, old friend of mine, with Pneumatics, with their emergency use authorization. He came on and told us about that. We had a rep from Celex with their diagnostic. Like you mentioned, Mike, Marjorie was on from the group in South Carolina that did the Vesper connector. And so we've just had a lot of cool things, a lot of big companies that, if I put the names out there, that are trying to help with the effort, have been on the call. Some have made themselves known, some haven't, but some incredibly large companies that are looking to contribute resources, help with manufacturing, have been a part of that. And so there's really just been a lot of interest and a lot of connection happening. We've had material suppliers connecting with folks who can build stuff. Just got an email. We got a local hospital system in touch with somebody who can make gowns for them. They had no way of getting in touch with, and that connection got made. So I think we're just really excited about those connections that are happening and the level of disinterested public service that people are investing into this.
Unfortunately, we're out of time in this segment. Why don't you give that address where folks can find out more if they want to participate in the Friday calls?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's intobeing.com/COVID Connect, in2being.com/COVID Connect.
And that's every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we usually run for about an hour and a half.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Gene Parunak from Into Being. This is a worthy effort these days. Best of luck to you, and congratulations.
Matt and Mike, thank you both so much. Really appreciate having me on.
All right, thanks very
Additional
much.
four-year students love Lawrence Technological University's thriving campus life, but LTU has always met non-traditional students' needs too. Lawrence Tech offers over 100 degree and certificate programs that can get adult students started or back on track. And most of our classes are conveniently offered evenings at our beautiful Southfield campus or online, so you can balance your social, family, and work life even while you power up your career. Lawrence Tech, where Blue Devils dare.